Welcome back everyone. Today we'll be talking about 8 of the best timeless and toughest nails motorcycles in my opinion. Models span from the 1980s through to the mid-2000s and up. If you're looking for a motorcycle and concentrate on low maintenance and go anywhere ability and reliability, then one of these should certainly fit into that category. The list is mixed up and listings from place number 8 to number 1 should be ignored. They are all equal in their own way. The kind of person buying these bikes is certainly a DIYer or knows someone who knows someone that will assist in the maintenance department of things. Every motorcycle on the list will be briefly discussed and commented on. What you as the viewer needs to research on your own is the Achilles heel of every one of these motorcycles. They have their own issues and plagues. The XRV 750 Africa Twin, for instance, is plagued with rectifier, starter, relay and fuel pump issues, to mention some of them. Once you identify each motorcycle and its flaw, you can preventatively remedy the problem by addressing and dealing with these issues on acquisition. If you resolve any known issue preventatively, they should last you a lifetime, depending on how well you maintain them. So let's dig in and start with our first bike. On number 8, we have the old XT500. The 70s was a time of great technical advancement within the Japanese sector that left the rest of the world struggling to keep up. Yamaha turned the clock back a few years with one particular model, however, and in doing so started something really big. There's something unique about the Yamaha XT500, being a really basic and understanding machine in a sea of late 70s technically advanced and groundbreaking machinery. It successfully captured a new audience with its stomping ability while also catching the eye of the old Brit Iron Brigade. It lacked a bit social graces like an electric starter, making it a real rider's machine, and created a whole new generation of multitasking two-wheelers as a gene that lives on strongly many years on. Now, every manufacturer has a large capacity, all-rounder in its lineup. And in more recent times, the class of adventure tourers has been created to accommodate the more complex of these machines, all tracing their roots back to the original XT500 concept and its many developments. Over the last 30 years, it's also arguably spawned a series of simple roadsters, the Yamaha SR500 being little more than a tarmac-focused XT and a style much copied since the introduction during 1978. The big single, once started, is a delight to be on. Although off-road it isn't as secure-footed as on the road, and at speed across anything other than smooth terrain, you do feel as if you're taking a back seat in the control department. The big lump of a bike does handle the bumps and jumps well. It has little say to do on where it goes once it lands. The long flat saddle was capable of carrying 2 people, but for any fun on the dirt roads, one up was preferably. Up front, the 6-volt system used a sealed beam headlight in case you got caught after dark. The tank held about 2.3 gallons, good for about 100 miles on the street, somewhat less in the dirt. Dry weight was just about 136 kilogram, which wasn't really heavy, but tough as nails. Number 7, the Honda XR650L. The 650L isn't far removed from a ground national champion. It was based on the XR600 dirt-only bike that Scott Summers used to dominate the GNCC series in the late 90s. To make it into a dual sport bike, Honda added an electric start and more displacement and stiffer suspension. Well, the motor isn't actually the same as one from the XR600. To be more accurate, it's from an 80s street model called the NX650. Which was very similar, but already had an electric start and taller primary gear ratio. The motor is a milder state of tune than that of the 600, but added displacement gives a smoother, torquier power delivery. It has a top-level suspension. The fork and shock held their own in the comparison of the modern equipment. Back in the early 90s, when the L was first made, there was a big controversy as to whether or not to use upside-down forks were better off on the road riders. For more motocross, upside-down designers were clearly superior. But for off-road, the switch has to be made for marketing reasons and had little to do with what the riders really thought of. The fork in the L is a 44mm Showa cartridge, conventional fork, That is essentially the same thing that many of the top riders used back in the day. The compression adjuster is on the bottom, but there's no rebound adjuster. That appeared on the liquid-cooled XR650R. Regardless, the fork on the XR is excellent and can be made even better with some attention. It's a little stiff and springy and could benefit from lighter springs and heavier oil viscosity. It's taller than you remember. Honda gave the 650L a stiffer spring than their 600R to handle the added weight with the electric starter and all the street stuff. Then the shock was altered so it wouldn't sink as much as with a passenger on pillion. There's also a seat which is very comfortable but very wide, so if your feet don't go straight down, it all adds to a big bike that's much taller than modern dirt bikes. Yes, it is heavy, and if you didn't know for sure, you probably guessed as much. The XR is around 149 kilograms. Number 6, that is one of my favorites, is the Africa Twin XR-V 750, big trail bike. You really can take off-road. The Honda XR-V 750 Africa Twin was one of the first Japanese monster trail desert rally bikes and remains one of the best power output. It's much lower than its latest machines, but similar seat makes it easier to manage once you leave the tarmac. It's not light, though even gentle drops can be costly if you don't have crash bars on. The Honda XR-V 750 Africa Twin, smooth, stable on the road, narrow front tire and wide bars make it quick to turn, and it's excellent in town and excellent balance. Visibility and steering lock. Brakes are better than the other big trail bikes of the early 90s, but outperformed by the latest crop. The Honda Africa Twin is very softly tuned V-twin, produces reasonably low rev torque, but it's far more and firm swift. Claimed power is about 60 horsepower, but measured realistically on the rear wheel should be about 52. That's a 600 diversion territory and much less than the 600 Bandit. The 3-valve per cylinder design is economical and reliable, is superb. The XR-V 750 Africa Twin is one of the most reliable bikes you can buy. The engines derived from the bulletproof VT500 and 6-figure mileages are quite possible, and it's generally good, but a few steel parts such as the front frame that supports the clocks and fairing can rust if neglected. A good choice for any overland expedition 92 onwards. Africa Twins get an onboard computer, which is fun even if the functions aren't left mind-blowing. Headlights aren't superb. High-tech bulbs can boost the output. Comfort is slightly disappointing. The riding position is great, but the seat too thin for long days in the saddle. And aftermarket variants such as a Corbin improve things to no end. Gel padding really helps. Gel padding underwear, it works. Let's move on to number 5, XT600E. The XC600E is about as straightforward, reliable and as solid as old school trail bike gets. The XT600 was the last of a long line of 4-valve air-cooled Yamaha singles, starting off with the original much-loved XT500 of the mid-70s, of course. This is a true trailer bike, decent off-road and straightforward and on-run fuzzy-no. Don't expect any frills or motorway plushes, but you won't find it any more honest workhorse than the XT600E. The 600E is a trail bike first, road bike second, and it shows. Tires are semi-knobbly, suspension is soft, brakes are weedy by road standards, and the seat is narrow and uncomfortable after mining distances. But there are no great surprises either around the XT600. It's fabulous, completely trustworthy, and about as straightforward as motorcycle engines get. The world may now have been removed on liquid cooling, fuel injected and multi-valve systems, but for honest and trustworthy poke, you could drive across the deserts with these things. I know which I would take. The XT600E is limited, about 120 and 50 km an hour. The 600 definitely isn't dripping in thicker paint and lustrous chrome, but it's rugged, durable and reliable. Besides all the shiny stuff, never lasts long when riding anyway on dirt. No mechanical issues to speak of on the 600 otherwise, in case throw, everything, except if everything is well looked after, to say. If the off-road world, less is more, and Yamaha 600E certainly lives up to that mantra. Instruments wise, there's just one square speedo and a sprinkling of idiot lights, and that's about it. The 600 switch gear is definitely one of the more basics, so nothing more than really to speak of. Number 4, KLR 650. Very robust bike. Forget your fancy pants 1200 Gs, providing you can live with adjusting and lubing your chain. The KLR 650 is at least as good as an overlanding and a mere fraction of the price. The KLR 650 suspension is soft and typical of most trail and style motorcycles. colossal fork drive buggers of the braking. It's nothing that can be associated with some of the stiffer fork springs and thicker oil, but functionally and fundamentally, suspension braking package is budget that works better off-road. The KLR rear brakes are not quite effective. There's nothing particularly special about the Kawasaki KLR 650 4-valve double cam motor. It feels lazy. It doesn't particularly care for speeds above about 130. But the Kawasaki KLR 650 is torquey, flexible, reasonably free, intrusive of vibration, 5-speed ratio gearbox. Clutches are a bit weak, and you'll need to keep the switches doused in WD-40 to prevent them from corroding. Chain tensioners on the Kawasaki KLR are fragile and have been known to break. The aftermarket can supply more reliable kit. If you get KLR 650, you carry on heavy luggage, it's worth replacing the subframe mountings, bolts with bigger high tensile items. The shock stuff is very poor quality. Reviews show that the bike is extremely popular, with the only negative comments around the hard seat and some minor frame issues, a bit of paint as well. None of this prevents it from being a serious good off-roader though. The 650 underplays its hand in around about the world contender with no center stand, fixed rubber blocks on the foot pegs, and no official hard luggage, all of which can be fixed on aftermarket ranges. You can buy it. The KLR is, the charging system is a bit weak, throwing about 212 amps, which will limit your ability. Plumb instead of a nice GPS set and a set of vests, but definitely concentrate on the doohickey fix on these KLRs. It's worthwhile. Number 3, we'll go to the BMW F650 GS, and I'm talking about the one with the Rotex engine. Born on the baby as the baby 1150 GS, the F650 has long and credible pedigree, including a string of variants. The GS has off-road pretensions, but in the real world it's a sturdy and sensible road motorcycle. Competent and confidence-inspiring about the 650 GS lacks passion. It's a bit of a brand neutral bike. The suspension is slightly willowy, and you can feel weight when you tipping in corners, but nothing dreadful. And the motorcycle holds the road well. Gears are clunk a bit. It's a BMW thing, and there's a bit of play on the throttle. Otherwise, solid. The 650 is definitely a workhorse and powers in one. Neat package with loads of torque. There's power right through the rev range, taking you from town to country to motorways with relative ease. The 650's smooth delivery makes for easy riding, and it's tried and tested, providing effortless wheeling. A very reliable, if perhaps a little unsurprising motorcycle. Top-notch basically, with sturdy body, great finishes, and excellent aftersales like BMWs do. Service, there's no lot of complaint about it. Consistent and reliable, the 650 probably has more mileage in it than an average rider. These motorcycles are built to last, and they do. It's not a budget motorcycle, especially if you want to add any extras, but if you're paying for quality and to some extent peace of mind, furthermore, the 650 GS motorcycle provides a lot of miles in the gallon which won't break the bank. A safe, robust choice, they hold their price well. Typically with BMW there's no shortage of bits and pieces available to start your motorcycle up front, but most of them add your accessories and extras. Standard equipment on the BMW 650 includes clear clocks and adjustable clutch lever and a center stand. Now the next one is the DRZ 400. Now you have to remember that the DRZ 400 was designed as a dual purpose trail bike, and that means there's a few compromises in terms of handling. The skinny 21-inch front wheel is perfect size for knobbly tires or semi-knobblies. If you're doing mainly road miles, but due to the size of it, and which can feel a little vague on the road, especially in the wet. The suspension is also built with off-road in mind, and that means that a willow ride, the weight of a pillion makes the shock almost hit the end and bottom out. Performance, however, all of it is expected from an enduro bike, and if you want more road performance, there is an alternative. The DRZ's single-cylinder motor is a good old-fashioned plotter, and with a double overhead cam, 4 valves and a water jacket, is hardly being stressed to produce 39 horsepower and 29 feet of torque. The fact it has an electric start, and major bonus, the fact that it has an electric start is a major bonus for everyone looking for trail riding, and so it's reliable. Owners report that in terms of mechanical failures, the single is very solid, and your main worries come from things vibrating loose. The original exhaust is fairly wimpy, and a lot of owners fit an aftermarket unit. There are carb reject kits available. Free-flowing exhaust helps liberate a few ponies. That works. If you accept the DRZ as is, a 130 km/h bike, you won't be disappointed. Pleasingly, it's very easy to home service, and just a few rands will secure you a full service kit, including an air filter, which is worth swapping fairly regularly. As off-road use does see the Suzuki inhaling a fair amount of muck. The main areas of concern when buying a used one is how much off-road it has done in its previous life, and jolts and bangs can create issues. Always inspect the bearings, headstock, wheel swing arm, as these are often badly worn. Check the wheels, rims for dents and spokes and broken rusty items. The exhaust for dents and holes, and most importantly the radiator for leaks. Number 1, DR650. Now on the DR650, there's nothing sexy particular about the model and about the DR. The basic model has been around for nearly 30 years with precious few upgrades. Not a lot to talk about. The turn signals, headlights, mirrors, plastics and dash look rather last century, but who cares? What is important is how well the DR650S does its dual purpose job. Handling commuter around town, duties during the week, and hitting the dirt on weekends for a bit of play. The DR650 definitely is a great package, as it's reliable, low maintenance, and will take you just about anywhere with a smile on your face. The single overcam air-cooled motor with an oil cooler uses a 40mm Mikuni carburetor, so you will need to use a choke when starting on all but a hot summer day. Once warmed up though, a 644cc thumper is ready for duty. Yes, you will have to keep tabs on how many miles you've ridden since you last put in gas. The 13.2 litre tank there's no fuel gauge, just a reset trip meter, and makes you reach a petrol without looking in case you need to flip the reserve while you're on the freeway. Yeah, that might have happened to me as well sometimes. The 2019 Suzuki DR650 is tall. The standard 808mm seat height is too big ask for some, especially in the dirt. However, Suzuki's design for the DR650 is to be easily lowered. You can get a kit for it, and getting it back to about 40.6mm drop. To drop the chassis, spacers are removed from the fork legs and shock, and the upper shock mounting point on the front gets moved. Suspension travel is lowered by 220mm. Ground clearance is also reduced from 264 to 226. When doing this, the Suzuki low side stand needs to be installed. When transferring between off-road sections, the Suzuki DR650S makes for a very fun canyon motorcycle. The dual sport rubber works for this application, and the motor makes everything easy, even with the soft suspension. The DR650 holds definitely aligns through corners well. Once you get used to it, you can make pretty good times on the DR due to its relatively lightweight and abundant torque. Okay, so now that we've given you a few ideas, it's up to you to decide what works for you. Single cylinders will always be less favorable on the long open stretch roads due to their capacity limits. Twin cylinders certainly will eat up the long stretches off-road better, yes, but they're also a bit heavier. Before buying any motorcycle, please ask yourself these questions. What do I want out of this bike? What is my budget? What are the maintenance costs on the motorcycle in the long term? What are the service intervals? Can I fix it myself? Don't let someone tell you motorcycling is cheaper commuting than a car, because it's not fun. Yes, it's definitely more fun. Decide on what you want to buy, stick to it, and walk away from really shoddy deals and people. If you like our content, remember, hit the like and subscribe button, and until our next video, bye bye.